Hello, and welcome to Game Changer Live. We were created to inspire with topics around positivity, coaching, fighting perfection, and more. And I am live every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we bring on guests on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. The idea behind going live is that you get to see us unedited and authentic. Who you see here is who we really are. And that's important because when you hire a coach or you hire a professional to support you, you want to make sure that they're the right fit for you. Our motto here is that together we inspire, and we couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much for watching our show. I'm here with my guest today, Karen Rudolf. Karen is a master at peaceful thriving. She's also a three-time #1 international best-selling author, a speaker, a spiritual healer, a nurse, and a coach, and so much more, because those are just labels, right? They don't capture all of us. But she specializes in heart based mind shift coaching and has created a model for well being and wellness in mind, body, heart, and spirit. And those are my words for you, Karen. I'm so glad to have you back on the show. You were here before talking about your trip to Costa Rica and the lessons that you learned there. Um, but if you could just take a moment and tell us in your own words, who are you and what is your coaching business all about?
Who I am is I'm me. I'm a catalyst for change. My business is all about shifting perceptions. I like to look at it as I am um, an architect. I'm an architect for life. And what I do is look at people's lives from the inside out. And you have to start with a foundation, starting someplace. So for me, it always begins from within. As within, so is out. So,
Yeah. So that tells us a lot about who you are and who your business is, but who's your ideal client or who really benefits from working for you? I guess who in the audience would really benefit from listening to you today?
well, those that are conscious leaders, those who are really willing to want to change and shift, because the more you choose to take it on and embrace it, the more your life is going to be fulfilled and enhanced. And so I say women, but men show up all the time. So I don't kick anybody out. I don't discriminate. Uh, you know, I
Yeah,
just serve. I'm here to serve.
you're here to serve and here to make those powerful shifts. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's always great to start with a personal story of your personal journey. We heard a little bit about it in your last episode. I encourage the audience after this episode is done to go back and watch that one, to learn a little bit more about you. But if you could tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how it led you up to recognizing how transformative and powerful words are for our health and our well-being.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. Going back in time, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had three children, but they were like little stepladder children, one after the other. And I didn't know if I was coming or going. I was doing 6 hours of carpooling back then. I had no self-worth, no self-esteem. I was a doormat. And I would never look anybody in the eye. There's no way I would have been on this call or any other caller doing what I do today had I not embraced the shift, had I not embraced the change. Because when divorce struck, my former disappeared. And I did not know if I was coming or going. And it felt like the sky was falling. And it was just like my whole world, excuse me, felt like it was crumbling. And one of the things that he had said was he would never speak to me again. So in that space, everything that went through the attorneys had to, everything that had to be spoken had to go through the attorneys. So the bill was just like ching, ching, ching. So I made it a point in the moment. I thought, wow, like I am my children's first advocate. What am I teaching them? Who am I being that I'm teaching them to be a doormat? And I went, no. In that moment, I said, communication. I'm going to take on communication and I will never, ever, ever be in this situation again. So I made a choice and I took on some powerful communication courses, some of which took me into leadership, into team building, team bonding, and so on and so forth. And I ended up, they asked me, I was so involved with it. I throw myself into everything I do, like full force. And I had taken it on full force to the point where the instructors had asked me to coach a group in India. And I did that for a year. And by teaching, it really empowers you to really get it on a whole nother level. So that was part of the shift. And then right around the same time, my horse got struck by lightning and died. And I was devastated. And then I live in Florida. It's supposed to be the lightning capital of the world. And then my second horse got struck by lightning and survived. And my spiritual mentor said to me, Karen, when are you going to look up the meaning of lightning strike? And I laughed and I said, intuitively, I'm an intuitive. And I said, I know what it means. It's all about being a light in the world. And I don't know that I want to be responsible for that one. And she laughed and I went, all right, I'll take it on. So I've stepped into the power of being that light and serving others to lift them, as I say, from the inside out. And it was right around the same time that my mother got really sick. She was 72 years old and she had taken on painting at the time. And she had no one to show her paintings to. I was an hour, 2.5 hours away. And she decided that, oh, she had a migraine and she went to the doctor's office. So when you go to a doctor's office, they're committed to treating the symptoms. And before I knew it, she was on 19 medications, slurring her words, dropped everything, got a sitter. And I literally went and scraped my mother off the floor. But I didn't see my mother on the floor when I walked there. When I went in, rather, I saw this. It was this little girl curled up in a fetal position, and all she wanted to be was heard and seen and be enough and, be loved. And I said, you know what, enough of this stuff. I had come from a nursing background where, well, first off, coming from the era that I grew up in, it came from kids being seen, not heard. I was very curious. And my dad would always say, shut up, you asked too many questions, go away, go play, kind of thing. So the subliminal message I got messaging was, kids are being seen, not heard. Fast forward to my nursing career, the doctors are like, go away, just do what you're told to do. So the messaging just compounded and it was like, I'm not worthy of whatever I'm putting out there. And I went, no, I just felt it in my gut that, so I said, the buck stops here. I'm going to be a catalyst for change. And actually that's what I told the vet when I closed my eyes and he said, you got to put the horse down. I just remember getting still, going within and saying, no, he and I are going to be catalysts for change. And that's going to be where my focus is, on communication, the stories we tell ourselves to move us forward.
Yeah, because we're oftentimes our own worst enemy. It's one of the things that I know. And you've learned to fight through those messages and have your voice heard and to speak up for yourself because it's important. And you saw that with it sounds like you saw that with your mother, which I think is so fascinating. You mentioned that you were a nurse. So what are some of the limitations that you observed in conventional medicine? I know that you're into wellness and it's both spiritual and physical wellness. But what are some of the limitations, I guess, that you observed in conventional medicine?
Well, from my perspective, from my observations, what I really got was that the medical system is basically teaching people how to treat the symptoms and not necessarily get to the cure. There is a time and place for Western medicine as well as a time and place for holistic medicine. So personally, I like to combine the two, especially coming from that, because through my own experiences, there's a lot, and even biblically, we have the ability to heal ourselves. But if we don't give ourselves the opportunity or the chance to do that, how are we supposed to know? Because most people today, it's like that quick fix. Oh, let me just get a pill and it'll go away. Well, no, it's still there. You're just masking it. You're not getting to underlying problems. And most of the underlying stuff I've come to learn and research and everything else is due to the stories we tell ourselves.
A lot of people, and I want to go off track here a little bit, but a lot of people have an opinion about homeopathic medicines or kind of mind over matter. But if you study neurology, if you study specifically the sciences behind positive neuroscience, positive psychology, and positive neuroscience, there's so much wisdom that we've just dismissed as woobly stuff that actually does have an effect on the human being. How we sleep, how we think of ourselves, how we phrase things in our mind, even how we experience pain and what we do to honor that pain and to move through it. As someone with chronic pain and disability as a result of it, I can tell you that mindset has such a transformative aspect in our health and well-being that it's not just woobly, it's not, it is scientific, there is science behind it, but the science is always really focused on what can we prove, what can we show as real. And to the extent that these things work for us, that's real. That's
Exactly.
proof. That's empirical proof. So I just want to commend you for pointing those things out and to living that truth. So sorry, enough of me. You mentioned that your horse was struck by lightning, your mother had some big health concerns, health issues that and in that you were shifting as a result of that. How did those experiences inspire you to explore those alternative approaches to healing?
Well, I've always been into the holistic aspect of life. When I was a little girl, I used to heal my Barbie dolls with herbs. I'm a nature girl by day. I used to go into my little igloo under a bush and heal my little Barbie dolls. So I always knew I had it within me. Um, uh, I just always started exploring because I said I was curious and I knew when there's a will, there's a way, there's got to be alternatives. And I remember my mother doting over me because I had asthma, which made me feel I was so worse off than every other kid on the block. And I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that because God forbid my asthma blew up. And I'm like, no, I'm a normal kid. So it just started inspiring and I started observing others around me. And there's got to be other ways. So once I got divorced, I got into this whole curiosity space of not being able to get enough. It was like Google was my, oh my God, it was such a fix. It was like I couldn't get enough of information. It was like information download. I started studying neuroscience. I started studying quantum physics. And I'm like, I have no idea why I'm doing this, but somebody's pulling me in that. And I just felt like it was being pulled by my, you know, you're doing this. And I started meeting people who were aligned with that. And they didn't have any idea why they were doing it, but we just knew we had this commonality, and then synchronicities started occurring and happening. And one thing begot another, and then I got into looking for who I was within my own space, and I started studying world religions. I was looking for something outside of myself, not realizing it, and the answers were always within. So I'm always encouraging people to come home. I come home, I leave, I come right back. I'm still human. So,
Was there, I guess, a pivotal moment for you? Just that this is the last nail. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will, where you decided to embark on this transformative journey after those challenges that you faced.
it was probably my mother. It was probably that time with like it was the culmination of my divorce, the horse, and it was like all within this short period of time. But seeing my mother on the floor, I was like, we're products of her environment. And when I saw my mother on the floor, I saw me with my head down, walking 10 paces behind my former husband. And I'm like, no, 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 no more of this. So I was committed to shifting my own. And once I started learning to shift my own, I said, being a catalyst for change means being a servant for others. And I just stepped into that full force, and I just started taking on all this training. And yeah.
I know that the power of words are important. Can you explain when that concept first kind of showed up with regards to this being a catalyst of change and discovering your own power?
Yeah, part of it was my spiritual journey, honestly, because the word, in the beginning was the word, and words create our reality. And I started looking further into that, and part of my studies led me to, right, just discovery and curiosity led me to Dr. Emoto's work. And Dr. Emoto, because now I'm talking about the power of words and I'm thinking about that. And our orders our wands, our word creates our reality. So what you put out is exactly what the universe is going to get you back. So I remember while I was going through divorce, I'd be praying for strength. God, give me strength. I can't take this anymore. I don't know. And I was getting more challenges. And then all of a sudden one day it dawned on me like, oh, what if I reframe that? And all of a sudden when I started reframing it and shifting my perception around it was like less challenges and more empowerment started coming in. And as I said, when I started looking at Dr. Emoto's work, and Dr. Emoto is a Japanese doctor who actually was asked to leave Japan because of the work, because most people thought it was sort of woo-woo-ish. But again, when you start looking at things like this, it's hard to let go of the evidence. And of course, being that scientific, the left brain, right brain, whole brain thinker that I am, it was like, I have to know, I want to know. So I did it on my own. And what Dr. Emoto was all about was he took water, and he also did it with a rice experiment. He did it with water, and what he did was he would put on one, for instance, he would put the word love on one bottle of water, and he would freeze it, and he put it in a petri dish as well, and he would freeze the petri dish and then look at it under a microscope, and love would come up like these beautiful snowflake fractals. And then he would put the word hate on another one. And all of a sudden, they started looking like cancer cells. And then there was ones that he did nothing on where it was completely neglected and they just looked like they were shriveling up. And I started looking at the evidence and I'm saying, wait a second, from a nursing perspective, our body is approximately 78% water. So what you think about, you bring about. And if what we're thinking about is attached to and our body is 78% water, then every thought you think affects every cell of your body, and every cell is attached to every organ, and every organ is attached to ease or dis-ease. So it becomes, we have the power to shift our thinking and heal ourselves through our thinking, right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to cure, what is in the moment, but it will support you in shifting that energy so it doesn't go any further. Yeah. So.
If I can just add a little credibility, because that is what you're talking about is very true, and I know that Dr. Momoto has a lot of scientists very uncomfortable with his work, but there are a lot of valid studies around the way that our thoughts impact our pain or our experience of pain, and the mindset that we have around that, and it's kind of similar that the words that we use to describe our realities are so impactful. There are tribes out there who don't have a concept of left or right, and instead describe their hands based off of the cardinal direction that they're most close to. This is my south hand. This is my north hand, or this is my east hand. And then if I turn around, it becomes my west hand, right? And so these people never get lost in dense, dense jungles because they always know which direction cardinally they're facing because it's built into the way that they experience the world. It's gone from the extrinsic of a word like north, south, east, or west to an intrinsic identity that they believe in, that they just feel, and that has a profound effect on how they experience the world around them. And the same is true with the words we say. And as a coach, you're kind of trained to listen to your clients say things like, "Oh, I should have done this," and then that should have is that is a red flag
Right.
right there. There's something going on.
Would have,
Um,
could
yeah, because the voice that you talk to yourself, everyone's voice that they talk to themselves is so negative and so harsh. And if you can change that dynamic, you can become the most successful version of yourself. So
Absolutely.
sorry, you excited me because you've touched some things that we have mutually in common. Well, let's go back to Dr. Emoto's work, because I know that it's problematic, but there is some universal truth or universal wisdom that's there. So how is it that you use his work in your coaching practice? How do you personally interpret his work and use it?
Words create reality. So I listen, like you were just saying, I listen to what my clients are saying and give them a different perception of it. So they get to choose. I empower choice all the time. I don't tell you what to do or how to do it, but I will empower you to empower yourself because I'm not there with you 24/7. So by doing so, it's not just empowering your words, but I actually, part of my coaching agreement that I have with it, I call it my relationship document, right, or a relationship agreement rather, is on there, and they have to initial everything, so they've read it, is to get a dictionary. And what I'll do is I will call them out, like, part of your homework is I want you to, because we talk a lot about energy, right? And if everything is energy, your words have weight. Your words have that energetic. And we say things. On my Costa Rica trip, everybody's like, "Oh, it was such an adventure." Well, if you look up the word adventure, it was an adventure. It was an adventure. I hurt myself. I had major surgery down there, but it wasn't that I intended to go on an adventure,
It
right?
happened.
So, yeah, but we don't think about that. Oh, I'm leaving to do this or I'm leaving to do that. So what I do is I have them look it up. And is that the energy and frequency that you want to be putting out there in the universe? And then you wonder why you're not successful in attracting your clients, or you're not successful in relationship, or you're not successful in your health and well-being. I mean, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And your words are what's going to form your reality. Your thoughts are going to, it becomes your thoughts, your words, and your actions. So,
Yeah. And not only that, not only does it affect you, it also affects the people that you
oh,
draw into your life, because energy attracts energy. So if you're putting out there a lot of negativity and you're very negative with yourself, you're going to attract a lot of people who are reinforcing that negativity.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's fascinating. I think you and I could talk about that for hours.
oh, I love it. I love having conversations with you.
One of the things that I think that is remarkable about your coaching that you've mentioned kind of off screen is the placebo effect. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about the placebo effect and how it's connected to the power of belief.
Oh, great question. I can remember the name of the book. Um, there was a surgeon, it'll come to me possibly as I'm talking. There was a surgeon who wrote a book, and he dealt with a lot of um, people who believed their nose was too big or their breasts were too small. And what he would do with them was take them through a psychological gamut of testing first, because once you change yourself, it's really tough to go back to that way of being. And once you change yourself, if you don't have the belief system to go along with it, it's not going to work. I know so many people have stapled their stomachs, and yeah, I'm going to be thin and trim and look like the next actress or whatever, and then they don't believe it. So what happens is they start eating again, and it everything is thwarted that they do. So he did this whole study on the placebo effect. And they did a blind study with people who, for instance, knew that they were going to have their knees replaced. And they knew that they were either going to be part of that placebo group of people, or they knew that they were going to have their knees replaced. And they found that afterwards, he actually made a cut in their knees and then sewed them back up pretty much. And then went back and said to them, went through their healing journey with them and everything else, and said to them, like, how's your knee? And they were like, wow, it's fabulous. You did a great job and everything is fine. And they were part of the placebo effect. It's like getting a sugar pill at the doctor's office. And because the mind is a very powerful tool, your brain does not know the difference between reality and fiction. So if I tell you this is going to fix it all, this pill is going to fix it all, your mind is going to believe it if you trust me, right? We trust our doctors. Sadly, it's often they're held up like gods. They're not God. They're doing the best they can with what they have and within their scope of training. So I'm not saying don't go to the doctor, and I'm not saying that they're going to do this placebo effect on you. But again, it's just to prove that the mind is a very powerful tool, and the words that we create those beliefs with are going to be grounded in reality for you.
Yeah. Another way of looking at that is that doesn't matter how many years of experience the doctor has, they've never walked in your shoes and they don't know what's going on for you. And so you have to be conscious and be your own advocate and question the doctor because they're
Yeah.
not always right. Um, so yeah, and I do think that the idea of the placebo effect is something that's been very well studied. We know that placebos in certain not everything,
Yeah.
obviously, but like if you're missing a leg, you can't grow the leg back with a placebo pill. Um, but you can certainly become better at handling the phantom pain and handling mobility and things like that. So, um, again, I'm talking too much. So let's get back to you. Um, how about a personal anecdote or experience where you actually witnessed the experience of positive words? Because we've talked about Dr. Emoto and we've talked about the placebo effect. Those are anecdotes of books out there that people can go and research and look at themselves. But what about your experience? What have you seen from the power of words?
Well, again, from my own experience, which was just January, I went flying off a horse unexpectedly. The horse went that way because it got spooked by hurt hooves. I went flying the other way, landed on my butt, and landed in the hospital in Costa Rica, not speaking the language. So the power of words, right? Well, communication comes in different modalities. So thank goodness for smartphones. Como se dice? And I learned to communicate that way. So the power of words, first and foremost, was to be my own advocate, right? And be on the journey of healing. So I had snapped my femur off. So I ended up having surgery down there in Costa Rica. And I have a titanium plate in my left hip now and femur. And then I I fractured my right femur and dislocated my two lower vertebrae. So I was pain. Like I'm not going to, but one of the things that I had to remind myself the power of words. Now, this is the self-talk I'm talking about. So for me, right, might work for you, might not, but I've been trained in this for so long that breathing, right? Breathing is a big, 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 big one. So I'm not going to discount it. I'm going to put it over here on the shelf and say, don't forget about that one. But the power of words. So when I look at the power of words, I reminded myself that pain is fleeting and this too shall pass. And what got me through it was the breathing often, right? Because I am not a huge advocate for taking medications. I mean, didn't say I didn't take medications, but I was very conscious of what I took, and I was alternating with a Tylenol while I was there because I really don't speak Spanish. I didn't understand what I was being given, and I did not want to walk away with, God forbid, anything that was going to be detrimental to me not being able to do what I am passionate and love doing. I actually while I was there 3 days later in the hospital bed, I had a mastermind group with 56 souls in the room that was all about finding your inner voice. And I said, they're all like, are you going to do it? And I went, absolutely. IVs hanging, people coming in and out. And we just rocked out right there in the hospital bed in Costa Rica. That's who I am. But the power of getting back to the power of words, it was like I gave my commitment and integrity is one of my core values. So I gave my word to being that and being there for them. So that's when I showed up. And then what I did, probably around day 3, I journaled, right? Because journaling also supports. And what I declared that not only was the word, right, word creating my reality, and I wrote it every single day. I declare, because the declared word, right, in the beginning was the word. I declare that my body is healing itself every day in every way. I'm commanding it, I'm compelling it, and I'm to get back to, there was a couple more words that I have in there. I should know this by heart. Demanding, inspiring, intending, commanding, compelling that my body get back to its natural, perfect state of that nature intended right here, right now. And I would write it every single day. And I just started believing it and believing it. And I couldn't walk when I got home. Couldn't get on the plane, which was a whole nother story. The moment I was finally able to get myself onto the plane and get home, I'm 6.5 months into it now, and the doctors were like, this is going to take you 8 to 12 months to heal from this. I'm walking without a cane now, and I'm not running any races by any stretch, but I take healing myself, and I'm doing more of a holistic concept of healing, taking that on. And they're like, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. I'm like, who says? Whose body is it anyway? So I found myself dancing in the kitchen, I'm like, against all odds, but who says it's going to look a certain way, right? I get to choose my reality.
Well, I want to be conscious of our time because we're just hit our 30-minute mark and we have so much more to talk about. So, can you give the listeners today just some quick tips on or practices on how they could get started in implementing kind of the learnings that they might have that they might benefit from in terms of improving the way that they look at the world, the way that they talk to themselves, and embracing that shift?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just a little side that brings to the tips is when I was looking at the mountain outside the window in Costa Rica, I kept looking at it and saying to myself, because the self-talk, right, is how am I going to get through this mountain? How am I going to get over the mountain? And it was like all that self-doubt started coming up. So tip number 1, practice mindful meditation, because when I looked down at my feet, it reminded me one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, right? Be here now. Be here now. So start with small stuff. Listen to what's coming out of your mouth, because you have a vibration and a frequency that's raising or lowering your beingness, that's going to either propel you forward or pull you back. Which is your use of language. Be kind to yourself. The past is past, can't change it, but be kind to yourself, moving right here, right now, moving forward. Cultivate a space of gratitude. These are simple beginner steps, right? The more I stood in gratitude, especially in Costa Rica, and like I said, I keep a journal, so I was writing them every day. Some days I would write 3, and some days I would write 100. Doesn't matter, because when you start stepping in gratitude, you start seeing things differently. When you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change, right? So it puts you into a different positive aspect of reality that will move you towards abundance a lot quicker and shift your way of being. And then number 4 would be visualization and affirmations, right? So if I say to myself, I'm a genius, yeah, right? I'm not, chances are I'm not going to believe it. But if I tell myself that I'm strong, I'm going to walk and my body's healing itself, I'm going to be strong, healed, and my body's going to heal itself, because now that's something that I can relate to and believe and really look in the mirror and say, that's it. I mean, if you look at my bathroom mirror, it's full to this day, and I've been doing this for years. I still have affirmations up there, right? They change, but I'm constantly with the self-talk, right? And I visualize the future version of myself. What do I want her to look like, right? Who do I want to be tomorrow as a future, right? I don't have to go a mile out the road. Just be here now. Like, who am I going to be here today? Who am I going to be tomorrow? And then lastly, number 5, write, journaling, you know, speak your healing into, and no matter what your healing is, speak it into existence,
I love
engage.
journaling. I love journaling.
Yes. The journaling, I have 2 different journals that I use personally and 2 that I use with my clients. And one is an energy shifting, which shifts your neural pathways and creates new outcomes that you get to see by reflective work, right? It's not the kind of journaling, oh, I went to have lunch with my girlfriend today and da 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 da. It's not that kind of thing. It's more succinct. It's more to raise a conscious awareness and bring you into the present moment so you know exactly, because awareness is key. Once you have that key, you have the power to choose to change it or not still being a choice. So write it and speak it. If you're not a journaler, most of our smartphones have a voice recording. I'll come out of the shower. I mean, if you go into notes, it translates it for you. Then you can put it into your journal or whatever. But capture it in the moment when I'm driving. It's like, oh, I want to remember a thought. So I actually have paper, waterproof paper in my shower because I'm very inspired in the shower. So I write it because you'll lose it if you don't. I like to believe that if it comes to you, if an idea comes to you, if you don't act on it right away, that's a blessing for you. And you turn it away, somebody else is going to grab it. So
There are
remember.
so many neurological studies that I want to point out that just reiterate everything that you say about gratitude and about the parts of your brain that tell stories changing through gratitude practices, the way that you journal and the way that you set goals around the future, all of those things wrapped up in everything you said. Yes, 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 yes. Those are all 100% true. I guess we really should probably wrap things up here, but if I could just get you to give us just one little thought, passing thought of if they took one thing away from today, if the audience that's watching, that's listening today or in the future, take one thing away from what you have to offer, what is that going to be?
Okay, consistency and commitment are key. Right? So when implementing the little bits of starter tips that I just gave you, embrace the power of words. It's a tool for transformation, which will allow you to guide yourself towards a healthier and more fulfilling life.
I understand that you're prepared to offer a gift to the people that are listening today.
I am. I have a whole document on the power of words that I wrote specifically for your audience. And I'm very happy on the outcome of it because I am in the process of writing book number 4. And out of book number 4 was all about health and well-being from the word consciousness aspect of it. So.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I would love to have you add that detail in the comments section of our video today. If you're watching us live, make sure you come back after the video's over so that you can see those comments in the video below the video in YouTube. And I thank you so much for being here. You're a fabulous guest. I want to have you back in the future. We're already talking about it. And to the audience, thank you so much for being here. We wouldn't be here without you. Together we inspire. That is our motto. And I feel inspired right now. But if you would take a moment to show how inspired you are by making sure that you're subscribed to the channel, that you've liked this video, and if you want to go that extra mile, share it with someone else who's going to really benefit from us, and leave a comment about what inspired you the most. Those things would be wonderful, and I would take them as gifts. Thank you. Tune in next week for another live episode at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I will see you then. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.